The Coliseum Ballroom, more often called Teros by the area youth, was built in 1924 by Benld businessman Dominic Terrell. When you danced at the Coliseum, you were dancing on the largest dance floor between Chicago and St. Louis. Frank Westphal and his famous orchestra, a nationally known jazz band from Chicago, was the first to play the Coliseum on Christmas Eve, 1924. Duke Ellington, Paul Whiteman, the King of Jazz, and the Bill Johnson Jazz Band were among some of the popular bands to play there during the 20s. By 1924, Prohibition had been around for about 4 years, and shown here is an ad by Benld Budweiser distributor Charles Gaudio promoting its non-alcoholic beverage Bevo, the all-year-round soft drink. Not everyone in Benld was drinking soft drinks, as we can well see here. This is a picture of the sheriff and his deputies just for Benld back before and during Prohibition. With the repeal of Prohibition in 1933, the Coliseum added a real bar. In fact, it would eventually have 3 bars, 2 on the dance floor and 1 on its 3,000 square foot balcony. Some of the greatest bands of the 30s played the Coliseum. Kay Kyser, Ina Ray Hutton, and her 17-piece all-female orchestra, the Melodiers, the Wayne King Orchestra, Artie Shaw, and the Ted Lewis Jazz Band were some of the greats to play on the stage of the Coliseum. The Big Band era peaked during the 40s. Horace Heidt was very famous then, and he played for one of the leap year dances during that decade. Who are these local patrons listening to? It could be the Eddie Howard Orchestra, the Sammy Kaye Orchestra, the Chicago-based Art Castle Orchestra. He hosted a coast-to-coast radio program. Or Lionel Hampton. Maybe the Dorsey Brothers, Tommy pictured here, and Brother Jimmy. Glenn Miller. Or was it Louis Armstrong? Here's Tiny Hill on the right with some of his Litchfield fans. Lawrence Welk, one of the few big band leaders to make a successful transition to TV, played the Coliseum, as did Count Basie and the beautiful Gloria Hart. They all played the Coliseum, and the list goes on and on. A group of Benld young men and women here, living it up at Teros during the 1940s. The Coliseum Ballroom celebrated its 25th anniversary on October 29, 1949, and the ladies and gentlemen were entertained by the nationally known Sherman Hayes Orchestra. A nice 4-page pamphlet was made to commemorate the occasion, and here's a photo of that memorable evening. A birthday party at the Coliseum. A bunch of young men and women from Gillespie had a great time that night in 1950. A dance topics mailer from November 1955 listing that month's musical groups. Guy Lombardo played the Coliseum year after year. Here's Guy Lombardo with People from Benld at Joyce Terrell's home in 1957. After her mother died in 1955, Joyce took over the job of running the Coliseum. Big bands continued to play the Coliseum into the 50s, and by the late 50s, rock and roll's Everly Brothers, Jerry Lee Lewis, Fats Domino, and a host of other rock talents would begin to dominate the Coliseum's top billing. The local area had talented musicians too. Gillespie's Will Black Orchestra played the Coliseum and still plays gigs with jazz from the 20s to the 40s music of the big band era. Benld's Johnny and the Torquays, a rock and roll band, even backed up Chuck Berry on more than one occasion during the 60s at the Coliseum. Chuck had some nice things to say regarding his Benld backup band, the Torquays. Another Benld band to play the stage of the Coliseum, the Benld Combo, had a huge following and played jazz, big band, polka, and even some rock and roll. By the time the 60s rolled around, the Coliseum showcased the best that rock and roll had to offer. Ike and Tina Turner, Joey D. and the Starlighters, and Ray Charles. Joyce Terrell, in a 1973 taped interview, said that she wasn't much interested in music, only the gait. But when she heard Ray Charles singing "I Can't Stop Loving You," she stopped what she was doing and listened to that great song. During the 60s, you'd be hard-pressed to find a rock band that played the Coliseum more than the crowd-pleaser Jules Blattner and the Teen Tones, Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, Bo Diddley, and Johnny Rivers, along with many others, played there during the 60s. The 70s brought Bob Seger and his Silver Bullet Band, Foghat, Styx, and Head East, a Champaign, Illinois group that gained national status. The Ohio Express and the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, two bubblegum bands, also played the Coliseum. The house band for most of the 70s was the Guild, a very popular regional group that played all over central Illinois. Very talented Gary McLean, former Guild keyboardist vocalist, agreed to play a set with local band Shadow of Doubt on March 13, 2010. It would be the first time music would be played on the stage of the Coliseum since the last century. The ballroom really rocked that Saturday afternoon. The group was great, and Gary knocked everybody out when he sang that Ray Charles favorite, Georgia. I'm sure Joyce was listening. The 80s was an attempt to change the image of the Coliseum. The new management tried to spruce things up a bit with young female barmaids. They even had what was to become a very popular poster featuring the young ladies. Nationally known bands Heart, the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, and Mama's Pride all made appearances at the Coliseum. Local groups were popular during the 80s too. Here's Runaway with Gillespie's own Mark Quinn, lower left corner. He now has a hugely successful St. Louis-based group, Joe Dirt and the Dirty Boys. Beneld's Paul Matika played with Crosswind, which later became the very popular group Passenger, and they always pleased the Coliseum crowds. The 80s also brought other kinds of entertainment to the Coliseum. The decade featured the first all-male striptease show at the Coliseum. A one-time only female mud wrestling event also took place there during this decade. In all fairness, over the decades, the Coliseum has been used for roller skating, bingo 3 nights a week, basketball, and wedding receptions. Political rallies also took place at the Coliseum. For some, the Coliseum is just another big brick building that some say resembles an airplane hangar. But most who have been there don't see it that way. Over the course of the year or so that we've been working on this documentary, we have talked to many people, and almost to the person. When they talk about this grand old ballroom, they do so with a little gleam in their eye, as if to say, "Oh, those were the days," without actually saying it. And yes, those were the days.